Hi from the Gambia.
Hello friends, we are back in West Africa in the beautiful Gambia. Gambia is one of those places that like 7-8 years ago, all my friends around me all of a sudden started going to Gambia to visit for weddings. So I've heard it's a really nice tourist destination.
Interesting.
And
After the virus is gone.
we're not going, guys, just so you know, we're here. I was just thinking about it. I wasn't going anywhere.
I mean, girls could dream.
Yeah.
Well, moving on, we'll kick off things with our proverb of the day. We actually found 2 proverbs, and this time we loved them both. The first one says, before healing others, heal yourself. And depending how you say it can come off as shady or self-love. So for example, you can say, before healing others, heal yourself.
That's like, don't throw stones and take out the
Exactly.
glass. Yeah.
Or you can go, before healing others, heal yourself. So that's more like a sage telling you about self-love.
Yeah, and take care of yourself before you can take care of others.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So again, it can be said both ways.
We're not sure which one they're referring to, but either way it works.
Yeah. Either way it works. You can either have tough love or, not as tough love. I don't know. Kind love, I guess.
Work your way out of that one, eh?
I'll work my way out somehow, you guys.
Okay.
And so the second one goes, if a donkey kicks you and you kick back, you are both donkeys. I mean, African proverbs are actually full of life and wisdom. So just imagine, and this is how I imagined it when I read this proverb the first time, is like 2 donkeys facing each other and just kicking like, you started it. No, you started it. I suppose it's one way of saying just turn the other cheek.
Yeah, depending on the situation. And also I interpreted it as, why would you kick a silly situation kind of thing. So if something...
So you're not as cartoonish as I am?
No, clearly not. It's like, don't go down to that level and kick the donkey too.
Oh, it's like when they go low, we go high.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Ooh,
that's
okay.
how I
Snap,
interpreted it. Yeah. Anyhow, let's go on and talk about the Gambia. Part of Gambia lies along the Atlantic Ocean, and here again we meet another country where seafood is aplenty. Because of this, our featured dish is a thick soup that is full of seafood.
Drum roll!
We are bringing you Ebbeh.
The Gambia's official name is Republic of the Gambia. It is surrounded by Senegal along all its borders except for the western border along the Atlantic Ocean. In the mid-18th century, it became part of the British Empire until independence in 1965. The Gambia is the smallest country in Africa. According to the 2013 census, the population is 1.87 million. The capital city is Banjul.
In Gambian cuisine, you will find rice, cassava, peanuts, a wide variety of tropical fruits and vegetables. Just like in Senegal, part of the Gambia is home to the Wolof people. And among other things, the Wolof people are credited with inventing that famous one-pot rice dish that many African countries call jollof rice. Honestly speaking, every country makes their jollof rice a little bit differently. In Gambia, it is called benachin, and it is made with vegetables and fish or meat. You also have olele, which is a steamed bean pudding. So you blend beans with some tomatoes, or actually not tomatoes, with some peppers and onions, and you steam it. Other countries might know it as moi moi. And they also have akara. They actually call it akara as well, which is kind of similar to moi moi, except that it is fried instead of steamed, I think. I've never made akara before.
No.
You're the akara champion, you tell me.
I do. In fact, you know me. I say I like beans.
Okay, if there's one thing that I can say that I give off to Yemi, like if we walked into a kitchen together and they said make akara, I would just take a step back and be like, Yemi, take it away.
The thing is that I know I say I don't like to cook. When I cook something I like, you can tell. Like it actually comes true.
Okay, let's calm down. We just talked about you making akara.
Okay, fine. It's okay. I'll take the win there and just move on.
Anyhow, there's domoda. Domoda is a peanut sauce which is served with rice. I feel like we've talked about peanut sauce in almost every country when it comes to West and Central Africa. And the funny thing is, I'd never heard of peanut sauce until I met a Ghanaian person. I was 19 years old. So even in Nigeria, I didn't know there was such a thing. But everybody eats a version of peanut sauce, it seems.
I guess I still really haven't had much of peanut sauce except the one we've tried here, and I'm not eating any of that outside the podcast.
I've actually not made a lot of it because of you, just so you know.
Thank you. God bless you.
Anyway, moving on.
Some other popular dishes in Gambia are tapalapa, a baguette made with a mixture of wheat, millet, cowpea, and corn flour. There's also tiakri, which is a sweet couscous and yogurt dish. We actually talked about something similar in Gabon, except that the name of the dish was slightly different. It's called chakri. Other interesting dishes are yohos and supakanja. Yohos is mussels cooked in tomato sauce with bell peppers, onions, and potatoes, while supakanja is an okra soup made with beef and sometimes made with crabs and prawns.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I want to really try this yohos because I love mussels. And you don't like mussels? You're so exhausting. Oh my God. I thought you said it wasn't fish.
You can't change co-hosts now, you know.
No, you said you don't like fish. You could eat everything else.
Well, I have a story about mussels and I don't want to go into it before it makes it drony. But I've tried mussels. Let's just say I tried mussels. I think I had it at my friend's engagement. And that actually tasted not too bad. I actually didn't mind it at all. But that was steamed.
Yeah, if you steam it with some white wine, it's really nice.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So moving on to our dish of the day, it's called Ebbeh, spelled Ebbeh. It is a seafood and cassava soup that typically has some fish, crabs, cockles, and prawns in it. It can also be made with sweet potatoes and yam, but in our case, we used cassava. So the soup itself is thick and hearty, and it comes out almost reddish yellow in color, similar to the color of tamarind. And it is filled with chunks of cassava, which, as you can imagine if you haven't seen cassava before, when boiled kind of looks like Irish potatoes. We also have it as the episode cover. So I really like how it smelled, and we'll get some of that later. But the mix of spices with the crab we used and everything was so attractive. The spices seemed to overwhelm the seafood smell, and when you look at this meal, it just screams, get in my belly.
Interesting. Just something you said it kind of looks like tamarind. You meant yellow tamarind.
Yes, yellow tamarind.
And it's interesting that you talk about tamarind because there's tamarind in this dish.
Ooh, Let's get into it.
Okay. So to make ebbeh, you need cassava, you need palm oil. We already mentioned that you need fish, but we didn't use fish because Yemi doesn't eat fish at all, and I don't like fish in soup. I'm actually very particular about where I eat my fish.
Thank you, Lord.
We also had onions, lime, tamarind, but this is the black tamarind, not the yellow one. I think the yellow one is a little sweet, if I recall. I've had yellow tamarind. In Nigeria, we called it liki liki.
Oh, yeah. No, is it sweet or tart?
So that's the thing. The one I had is a velvety yellow one, and that one is a bit sweet.
I guess they're different types of tamarind.
Yeah, they're different. It seems to me that they're different types, but this is the tart kind, the black one. It's actually black and tart.
Okay.
So there's tamarind. We used why have I lost the word? A hot pepper. Scotch bonnet. Goodness.
Atarodo?
Atarodo, yes.
Scotch bonnet peppers.
Scotch bonnet pepper. In Yoruba, they call it atarodo. And some bouillon cubes, some tamarind, like we said, and a variety of seafood. So for seafood, I used, I didn't have cockles. I didn't know what cockles were before this, but when
I didn't either. So
no, when I looked it up, it looks like the closest we can come to cockles is clams. So I used clams, shrimp, and crab. There are two ways you can do this. You can boil your cassava separately, and I think I've seen people add cassava into the sauce. But the thing with cassava, and we've talked about this before, is cassava can be poisonous if it's eaten raw, right?
Oh,
you didn't know that? I've said it before.
I know potatoes can be, like if you...
Oh, no, sorry. No, cassava and cassava leaves, I think.
Lord have mercy.
You did not know? Yeah, don't eat raw cassava. Yeah, don't. All those people that like to take you to places to eat raw food, make sure one of them is not cassava.
Just get myself poisoned.
So I'm always a little bit paranoid when it comes to cassava. When I buy it raw, I make sure it's thoroughly cooked. Don't worry, I haven't tried to kill you yet. And even when I fry it, I boil it then fry it.
Guys, she said yet. Damn.
Anyway. So I made it by boiling the cassava until it was a little bit soft, but not too soft.
Okay, so since we don't want to poison our listeners, cassava is done when you can put a fork through it? Because I know that's how you do it with potatoes.
Almost like potatoes, yam, sweet potato, the same concept.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, we're going to keep cooking it, right? So, and then used a potato masher to mash it a little bit, but not too much. It seems at this point, it depends on what you prefer. If you want something that's really thick, you mash it up completely. And I actually saw a recipe that said make it into a paste. And then I know, so it was like a really thick soup. But I watched another video where this lady said, well, the proper way to make it is it shouldn't be too mashed up because you want to be able to eat the chunks of cassava as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I prefer that method as well.
Yeah.
So I mashed it up just a little bit, and then you add in your palm oil and all the other ingredients. For something like the shrimp and the cockles, that will come much later. Now, I deviated a little bit from the recipe in that I wanted to flavor my crabs a little bit.
Okay.
So what I did was I blended some onions and the pepper together, and I steamed the crab for about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we went with I also added a bouillon cube and some salt. And actually, I didn't add salt, just a bouillon cube. And once that was done, there was a little bit of water from that, right? So I added that into the water, and then added the palm oil, added the tamarind and the lime. Now with the tamarind, I said it's a bit tart. And a little zingy.
Yeah.
So when I first put it in, combined with the palm oil, I was a little bit nervous. I thought it was going to be really, really sour. But as it cooked, it got better. And the thing is, I didn't use fresh tamarind. It already came pre-packaged. And so you kind of have to put it in with a little bit of water to break it up a little bit, because it's like a very, very thick hardened paste in a way.
Okay.
So when you mix it in with a little bit of water, break it up a little bit, and then pour it into the sauce.
Okay.
You wait for about 15 minutes or so, allow it to cook a bit, allow the flavors to melt together, and then I started putting my seafood. And the thing with seafood, of course, is that it cooks really quickly, and you don't want it to become dry and rubbery.
Yeah.
And honestly, crab can be cooked usually in less than 15. So since I'd already steamed it for about 5 minutes or so, towards the end of the cooking process, I put in the shrimp, the cockles, and the crab.
Okay.
And that's pretty much it. Depending on your consistency, you might end up with something that's a little bit thick. The thing is, ebbeh thickens as it starts to cool, because the cassava is slowly disintegrating into the sauce, right? And that's what is acting as a thickener.
And in fact, like when we looked it up, and even when I looked it up as well, it's one of the things that it looks like is meant to be eaten by itself.
Yes.
So it's not necessarily meant to be eaten with something else. Now, some of us edit with something else as well, just because, we're rebels, whatever. But, it's relatively thick enough that you should generally eat it by itself. Now, given that some people want it smashed completely, and some people recommend that you eat it in chunks, I can kind of see how in some cases you can eat it with a side, and in some cases, maybe not.
Well, the recipe I saw that asked for it to be completely pounded and then put back in didn't say you should eat it with anything. So I think then it would be closer to almost like a porridge.
Yeah.
But you're almost eating a very thick, solid soup, which in itself is very filling.
Yeah.
But I remember I'm seeing Yemi has this look of slight, I don't want to use the R word as in revulsion, but I can see she's not pleased. No, not revulsion, but like the concept of it being very thick. Because I remember you said you like to chew things.
Yes, I do. That's kind of why when you said it should be mashed completely, I was like, no.
But yeah, I just saw this other video that said, no, your ebbeh is going to be thick anyway, but you should still have chunks of cassava in it. And quite frankly, cassava is high in carbs. So I don't know why you're pairing it with something else. And then you just fall asleep.
I actually fell asleep after eating it. It was like carb heavy. Okay. So personally, I'm a fan of soups, as you well know. And it was creamy in consistency, and it had this really warm, almost like a comfort food. And so given that we're in cold weather right now, I was really, really happy with it. It is definitely, as I said, comforting food. And even before we started on this journey, I didn't think I would like cooked cassava in food as much as I do now. The flavor is very rich and it comes through. One thing that stood out to me, though, was the aftertaste of palm oil. And as you describe the way you cook it, I can understand where that taste came from. Because when at least I make stuff with palm oil, and again, I'm not telling Gambians how to do their food. I'm just talking about my process. So with palm oil, can have some kind of strong aftertaste where it feels like, when you eat meat with fat and you have that fat.
You tasted that? Are you sure it wasn't the mix with the tamarind?
No, okay. It wasn't.
Because usually I'm sensitive to that. Part of the reason I don't like yam porridge.
That was one of the things that kind of, at least in this meal, stood out to me. Depends on if you cook down as they say, cook down the palm oil more in some places. So if, for example, you add the palm oil at a point where, and it doesn't cook down, I don't know how to explain it. Well, I do know how to explain it. So for example,
it's like you cooking away the sourness of tomatoes.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So I think that stood out. That is not a big deal as far as I'm concerned. Again, depending on how you cook it, and some people actually like that taste. So it really isn't a big deal. I liked it. It was kind of sweet. It had the seafood portion of it, because usually I don't necessarily like the smell of seafood when I walk into a room or something like that. But the flavors from everything else that was in the meal kind of overwhelmed, in my opinion, the seafood smell. So I was able to get over that really, really quickly. And when I was eating it, it wasn't extremely spicy, how we would refer to as peppery. So it wasn't very peppery or anything. It was just like a very filling, hearty meal that you would have at the end, or a dish that you would have at the end of like a really cold day. And it was very filling. As I said, I fell right asleep.
It's funny.
Oh yeah, and I had mine with rice, which will also explain why I fell asleep.
Yeah. For me, I really liked it. Now, in terms of what you said about the palm oil taste, I did see something that said it comes down to how much palm oil you like.
Okay, that might be it as well.
Another option might be to use a little less palm oil, or to maybe cook the whole thing down longer before you add your seafood.
Yeah.
Now, for me, the entire cooking process took about an hour, and that included cooking the crabs, cooking the ebbeh. I think I said 20 minutes. I think it was a little bit longer than that. So I also, being a bit finicky about palm oil, I can appreciate what you said. Overall, I liked the dish. Again, I was a bit worried because of the tamarind, because when I first started cooking, I was like, this dish is a bit tart. But the cassava, everything rounded out. And the other thing is, many soups and stews, they kind of taste differently the day after, when all the flavors have really melded together.
And they have joined well.
Yeah, joined well, I'm sure. When the flavors have jammed together. So the first time I ate it, I was like, oh, okay, it's all right. And then I tried it again the day after. I was like, oh, it's really all right.
Yeah.
I really liked the introduction of tamarind, because it's not something I've actually done before. I've heard of tamarind being used to flavor chicken and stuff like that, but it cut through in a really nice, zesty way. So it didn't come out tart. What? Rindy?
Rindy, I just made up a word.
Oh,
keep going.
rindy.
This kind of thing, baby. You're just supposed to just like keep going.
No,
just
I legit didn't hear what you said. I think because I said zesty, you thought you would put in rindy. Like a rind.
That was kind of what I was saying.
Okay, sorry. Okay. But it brings like not a peppery, but like a zesty taste.
Yeah, that was it, right? Like it wasn't peppery. It was that. There was a zest.
Yes, like a zing.
Baba ding.
Zing, exactly. Zing, baba ding.
Yeah, so it was zingy.
I really liked it. And of course, it's seafood, so I'll like it. I may have overcooked the clams a little bit because they were a bit chewy, but apart from that.
So that's what that was.
Yeah, it was overcooked clams. Okay. I still haven't figured out the sweet spot for clams.
Okay.
So this is it, folks. We are at the end of another episode. As always, thank you for spending time with us. We'll do this again in 2 weeks.
Also, check out our website for more pictures on Ebbeh and more information about Gambian cuisine. And for those who may not be familiar, we also put up more information posts in between episodes on our Instagram page. So check it out.
Thank you for listening. While the podcast airs every 2 weeks, we have a backlog of episodes just waiting for you to enjoy.
The show is a collaboration between Tunuka Media and 234 Pantry.
Africa in My Kitchen is produced by Tunuka Media and co-hosted with 234 Pantry. So while on Instagram, visit both Tunuka Media and 234 Pantry. With Tunuka Media, you'll find out about more shows produced which aren't necessarily food related, while on 234 Pantry, you will get more food related content.
For example, Tunuka Media also produces another show called Overlooked, which I host. All the links with the relevant information to connect with us are located in the show notes. Like, subscribe, and share within your community. We'd also really love for you to give the show a high rating wherever you enjoy your podcasts.